Hello. Today we're going to go over a sample problem. The sample problem that I have is shown here. I'll just summarize it for you. This guy by the name of Howie calls up his friend, the statistician, in order to find the best dating website for him. And he really only has one criterion, and that is he wants to date women about the age of 45. So he wants to know which website likely had the most 45-year-old women on it. So that's the problem. If you need to see it anymore, just pause this video. And I'll go right to the spreadsheet and how it's set up. So here are the four sites listed above. We have Plenty of Squid, OK Eros, Zoo.com, and eHarmonica. And yes, these sites are just made up, so don't go looking for them. And the statistician took a sample of the ages of women on the website. So, first thing we want to do is find a measure of center. We actually want to find all four measures of center. The four measures of center are mean, median, mode, and mid-range. The mean is abbreviated, let me say that again, the sample mean, and since this is a sample, is abbreviated by the symbol X bar. That's X with a line over it. And I already showed you how to do that on a previous video. What we do is use the canned function called average. So basically it just finds an average of all of these data values for this first site. The way we get to that is we click on the cell and start typing equals AVER, and as you can see, we have this average right here. If you look down, there are a bunch of other types of averages, but the one that we use is just the one that spells out the word average. So I'm going to click on that. And then I'm going to do my dragging and dropping of, grabbing the first cell and dragging all the way down. There's something that's pretty important here. What you want to do is you want to drag all the way down to the level of the longest data set, the data set with the most amount of values. So for example, this in column C, OK Arrows has, I believe, like 18 values. So I want to make sure I drag down to, well, it's the 20th row. Even though there's nothing there, when we use this average, this function average, it just discounts that last cell that has nothing in it. It just treats it as though it's not even there. But there's a reason for this, so let me go ahead and do that. I'm going to start with cell B2 and go all the way down while holding down the mouse button. And I'm going to go down to B20. Remember, even though there's nothing there. Then I'm going to close that parenthesis and press enter. And, well, as it turns out, the mean average of the sample of the women on Plenty of Squid, that one has, the mean average is 45. So let's look for the median. Now, we went over in class, or you looked at the notes, and you saw that the median is the data value that's in the middle after the data values are placed in order. Now we can easily place these in order. We actually have a function that does that, but let's not do. Let's make this as easy as possible. What I'm going to do is I'm going to type equals. What do you think median might be? Let's start typing in MED. Oh, look, there's one that has median, and it says it returns the median or the number in the middle of a set of given numbers. Okay, so let's use that function. And I'm going to grab the first one, and remember, I'm going to go all the way down to row 20 because that's where the longest data set goes down to. And I'm going to close my parenthesis and press enter. Wow. So for that first website, the median is 45 and the mean is 45. So that's actually pretty good, but that's just a snapshot of what's going on with that website. So let's try another measure, mode. And as you learned in class, or you read in the notes, or in the textbook, the mode is the most frequently occurring data value. So rather than count that out, let's see if there's an Excel function built in. We'll say equals mode. Oh, well, we have a few of them. We have mode.mult, mode.sngl, and one that just has mode. Now, in the past, we use this one that just says mode. The problem with that is, I don't know if you could see it, but there's a little triangle here with an exclamation point. It's sort of a warning. And what that means is it's a legacy function. It will no longer be offered in future versions of Excel. So the right one that we're going to use is this one here, the one that says mode.sngl. That means mode.single, meaning there's only one mode. In this class, we only talk about data that has either one mode or no mode. We don't use what's called multimodal data. So I'm going to click on the mode.sngl and again grab the first one and go all the way down past, all the way to the row 20 and close parenthesis. And wow, the mean, the median, the mode, they're all 45 for that first website. That website kind of looks good. Let's see what happens with the mid-range. Now, before you get all excited and think that we just have a function for mid-range, we don't. You're wrong. But we do have a couple of other functions that we can combine together and find the mid-range. Now, as you might have learned in the notes or in class or in the textbook, the mid-range is you take the highest value or the largest data value and you add that to the smallest data value, and then you divide that result by 2. Keep in mind the order of operations. You have to add those two things together, the largest value plus the smallest value, and to get that result first and then divide by 2. In math, I hope you all know by now that in order to do an addition before a division, you must put that entire addition in parentheses. Now, the functions we are going to use to determine the mid-range would be, we have a function called max that will give you the maximum value. and min, which will give you a minimum value of a set of data. So let me just start typing it in, and remember, you could always pause this video if you need some more help. So equals, and then I'm going to open a parenthesis, max, and take a look. We have this max right here. And I'm going to grab the first one and go down past that last data value there. And then plus, and now I'm going to type in min, open parenthesis, grab the first one, go down to row 20, close parenthesis. And keep in mind, we're only going down to row 20. I could give you even a larger data set, and you'd have to go further than that. But since the largest data set I have ends at row 20, you have to go to row 20. If it ended at row 21, well, then you would have to go to row 21. Okay, so again, I have max of all the values, B2 to B20, that range of cell values, plus min of B2 to B20. And I have to close the parenthesis for the numerator. See, this last parenthesis I typed in closed this very first one. And now, after I do that, I'll say divided by 2. Enter. And wow, the mean, median, mode, and mid-range are all 45. Well, again, that's just a snapshot. It looks good on paper right now, but we're going to have to play around a little bit more and figure out which of these cruises is better. If you remember from previous spreadsheet that I showed you, a previous video, we were able to drag and drop functions. And remember, I dragged and dropped them down, and I said that, well, we don't go across in this case because it wouldn't have made sense. But for this particular one, it does make sense. If I drag and drop all the way across the functions, they will all populate into these cells. So let me show you what I mean. First, let's do this with x bar, or the sample mean. We have the fat plus sign. We're approaching the lower right-hand corner of that cell. And I'm going to drag and drop that function across. And there we go. And as it turns out, well, it seems like the mean for all of these is 45. Let's make sure it did it correctly. This is column B, and it just says, let's see, the average from B2 to B20. And remember, it just discounts B20. This one is column C, and it gives me the average from C2 to C20. Okay. So that worked. And here we have the average D2 to D20, and of course this one is the average of E2 to E20, and it just discounts these blank cells right here. Well, let's try to do that next with the median and see if we can get a better picture as to which of these websites is probably the best one. Okay, fat plus sign, thin plus sign, dragging across. Those are all 45 as well. Let's assume they're all right. Okay, let's try that with mode. Those are all 45s. And mid-range. And those are all 45. Well, just given this information, and let's just say that Howie, the guy in the problem, let's just say that this is all he sees. Well, he wouldn't know or have any idea which of these would probably be the best website to pick. So, let's try another thing. Let's talk about this thing that we call range. Now, range is a measure of variance. These first four things we did right here were measures of center. The mean, median, mode, and mid-range tells us, well, about where the data is centered around. The range, however, is a measure of variance, and it tells us how scattered the data is, how far all over the map it might be. Now, a large range doesn't really tell us very much. A small range tells us a lot. But let's just, before I get into the theory behind this, let's just talk about how to find the range. And basically, we just take the largest value of each data set, and from that, we subtract the smallest data value. So we're going to type in equals, and how do we find the maximum data value? That's right, we type in max, open parenthesis, grab the first one, go down past that last one. Okay, and then minus the smallest value, which, let's see, we would use min. Grab the first one, go down past the last one, close parenthesis, press enter. Okay, now that has a mean of 45, median 45, mode 45, mid-range 45, and a range of 52. Well, that's a pretty big range considering that the mean is only 45. So, let's try another measure of let's try another measure of variance, or it's also called measures of dispersion. Either one of those two are the correct terms, but basically they tell us how scattered these things are. And if you remember from class or your notes or the book, this S with a little 2 next to it, it means the sample variance. Remember, if it has a letter of the English alphabet, then it's a sample statistic. If it uses a Greek letter for a symbol, then it's a population parameter. I said that S with a little 2 next to it is the sample variance. So variance, let's try typing in equals VAR. And if we take a close look, again, you have a couple of these legacy functions here, so we're not going to use those. And I said we're going to find the sample variance. So that's this one, var.s for sample. And I'm going to grab the first one, go down to the 20th row on this, and then close parentheses. Okay, now for right now, this sample variance is just a number. It's meaningless to you. We don't really learn about what the variance means until unit 3 in this class. So for right now, it's just a number, it's a calculation, and I will talk more about it after we get the variance and this last one, just the S, for all of the data sets. Now, from the formula, which is a really long, crazy formula for variance, if we take the square root of this number for the variance, we would get this last thing called the standard deviation. But I don't want to take the square root of it. I just want to calculate the standard deviation directly. So in order to do that, I'm going to type in equals, let's see, standard ST, and here we have stdev.p. Well, that's population. We're not working with a population. We're working with a sample. So stdev.s for sample. And I grab the first one and go down past the last one. Closing parenthesis, press enter. So for this one, I have a range of 52, a variance, S with the little 2 next to it, sample variance of 183 and change, and a sample standard deviation of 13.5-ish. So let's drag and drop all these functions across to see what the other ones are. Now, if I take a look at just the ranges, 52 is a pretty big range. 48 is also a pretty big range when you're comparing it to a mean, median, mode, and mid-range of 45. 32 is, well, that's a little bit better. And 18, that's probably even better. Now, if I were Howie and I just knew this information, just the mean, median, mode, mid-range, and then the ranges for each, then what I would do is I would eliminate these first two and then maybe these last two. And probably if all I had is the range, I would probably pick this last one, E harmonica. But let's take a look a little bit further. Here I have a variance of 32 and change, and here I have a variance of 43 and change, almost 44. And then when I go to standard deviation, because usually when we compare these things, we look at the standard deviations. This one has a standard deviation of 5.7-ish, and this is 6.62-ish. And then if I take a look at these two, their standard deviations are much higher. So let me explain to you what that means. If I looked at all of these, this is a measure basically of how scattered or how dispersed the data is. And if I take a look at 15 and I compare it, say, to 6, well, 6 is a much smaller standard deviation, which means my data is much less scattered. And all things considered equal, all other things with the measures of center, then this 6.62 is a way better number than this 15.9961 as far as the data being more condensed. In other words, less scattered. But this one is the best one. And here's why. All other things being equal, meaning the mean, the median, the mode, and mid-range, they are all 45 for all of these. But this one, the zoo.com, that one has the smallest standard deviation. And because it has the smallest deviation, it means it's the less scattered, which means that all of the numbers are much closer to 45 on this one than on any of the others. So let's take a look at it and compare these last two. You know, I just have like 44, 45, 45. All right, well, this 61 is way up there, but 45, 45, 45, and then 47 to 43, and so on. And basically, it's just two outliers, two that fall really far from that mean, which is this 25 and this 61. All of the others, if I said 25, I meant 29, and the 61. But all of the other numbers are very close to 45. If I take a look at this last one, I have quite a few other outliers. That means that this one, even though it has a smaller range, the data is way more scattered. There are very few numbers that are right near my mean, median, mode, and mid-range. So if all that Howie saw was the statistics for the samples that were here, I would say that the best one for Howie to choose would be this one, zoo.com. So you go, Howie. That's the one. Anyway, that is all for today. Hope you enjoyed it and have a great day. Bye.